Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Discover an Indigenous Approach to Intergenerational Healing, Intuitive Tools to Diagnose the Ancestral Roots of Your Disease. My name is Stephen Knight. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network. And one of the things I love most about my job is getting to explore new areas that are cross-pollinating from different genres. And we're going to get to explore some really cool perspectives and powerful practices today on intergenerational healing and really using some of our intuitive abilities to assist in that process. We're going to do so with Dr. Jennifer Lisa Vest. She's an Afro-Indigenous medical intuitive healer and author. She's taught quite a number of very powerful programs for the Shift Network and is really always evolving the paradigm of how we understand ourselves, our world, and our relationship to spirit and guides on the other side. A lot of cool stuff that we'll explore today. So thank you, Dr. Vest, for being with us here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Great. Well, we're going to dive in, and I'm excited that we're going to have a brand new 7-week program with Dr. Vest called An Indigenous Approach to Intergenerational Healing. And so we'll share more about that towards the end of the hour if you get sparked by what you hear. So, Dr. Vest, I'd love for you to start us off here with a little bit about your backstory in terms of working with intergenerational healing and why you've really come to see that as such an important focal point for us in our current lives.
Okay. Well, I started out, I was born with lots of gifts, and from an early age, I had a lot of guides around me, and I had a lot of experiences when I was young. But then also, I was really fortunate to have a great grandmother who was the first person to kind of recognize me and tell me who I was, and who started teaching me very young. And then I also had a mother who had gifts and who also identified me. And but then I lost both of those people fairly young and ended up having a lot of other teachers, having teachers first just approach me. I had a lot of teachers approach me. And the teachers that approached me were in various traditions that were all connected to my own ancestry, even though I didn't seek them out. That's how it ended up, that the teachers I had from Afro-Caribbean cultures and from Native American cultures, and then also from white spiritualist communities, were all really in alignment with my ancestry. Now, early on, when I was developing my gifts, I was working with ancestors. And in a number of the traditions I was trained in, I was taught about the importance of working with ancestors. And so as I was working with a variety of guides, I was also working with ancestors. At the same time that I was doing my spiritual work and developing my gifts, I was going through healing crises, going through medical issues. And it was the medical issues that really prompted me to get fully on my path and to become a medical intuitive. But in the process of my own healing, I learned about all of the different causes of illness. And so I learned about, of course, we know the physical, we're familiar with that. We go to a doctor, they talk about what are the physical things causing the illness. But then there's also the emotional causes and then the spiritual causes. And that's where we find out about pre-life contracts and life purpose and soul contracts. But there's also, within that, when we look at some of the spiritual causes, we find out about group karma. And that's what I learned about over the years, was the importance of group karma. And now group karma really got my attention about the importance of our ancestry and how that is a part of our actual medicine. It's a part of our actual spiritual development. There are some people who like to think that spirituality is about kind of divorcing yourself from identity or ancestry or kind of the 3D world that we live in. But what I discovered through my guides is that we choose, as souls, we make very conscious decisions to incarnate into certain types of bodies that are situated in a particular way. And so that group karma is a part of our development and a part of our purpose. But additionally, I found out that, when we start looking at emotional causes and sociological causes of illness, we have to look at families. And we have to look not just at families, but we have to look at like the whole history of our family. And that's where we get into intergenerational trauma and intergenerational healing. And so we really have to look at, the whole picture as healers. We have to look at all of these causes of illness. And so I see um, ancestral trauma and intergenerational healing as an important part of healing. Now, the term ancestral medicine refers to traditional medicine that we're trained in. And so I'm trained in a number of forms of traditional medicine. And we're starting to see people talk more, use the term ancestral medicine, because people are reclaiming those traditions and wanting to, let's talk about these traditions that have been practiced in certain cultures for generations. Let's reclaim those. Let's bring those back to the fore. This is the time for that right now. It's time for us to begin to do that. And so it feels important for me as a medical intuitive to be really, not just working with ancestral medicine as I have been for many years, but to begin to really delve into ancestral healing as well.
There's so much that we could unpack in what you just shared there, but I'm intrigued to go back to the term group karma and have a little deeper understanding of what group karma is and how can that have an impact on our own health and well-being.
Yeah, so group karma is really interesting, especially for us in the West. We're so used to thinking of ourselves as individuals, isolated individuals who make decisions for ourselves. And so when I first started visiting the Akashic Records and sitting in on these pre-life conferences where people are sitting with their guides, souls are sitting with their guides, and they're making decisions about the next incarnation. And they're deciding, oh, where am I going to be born? Who are my parents going to be? What kind of body am I going to have? And what's going to be my purpose? There's also karma that comes into that decision making. And karma, a lot of people don't understand karma. They think of karma as like punishment. There's no punishment on the other side. Karma is about balance. And so karma is if you've had certain experiences in past lives, you want to incarnate and have other experiences so you can understand life from every perspective. So let's say you were a doctor in a past life, that in this life you might want to incarnate as somebody with a serious illness who has to then deal with doctors, because then you get to see both sides of that equation. And so we often will set ourselves up in different ways to allow us to have a full spectrum experience. So the most obvious example is gender. A soul is not going to incarnate in the same gender every lifetime, because if they did, they would never have really a full understanding of what it's like to exist in this world given gender. So group karma is kind of interesting because it's where souls incarnate into certain identity groups in order to teach certain lessons. The way I've often seen it is they come to teach lessons to humanity. And as a part of that group, they may have to go through some challenges, but that's a part of the lesson that group came to teach. Right. So, one example that I was taught was about people who are incarnating into Black bodies, African American, Afro-Caribbean, that anyone being incarnating into the group karma for Blackness are coming here to teach humanity about humanity. And this is why we have, hundreds of years and still ongoing today of people who are labeled or seen as Black being treated in a dehumanizing way. And then all of these movements to try to raise people's consciousness around why you shouldn't treat people that way, right? And so there's this group karma, like people who choose to incarnate into a Black body, they're saying, oh, in addition to the other things I signed up for in this lifetime, I also want to contribute to that group work where I'm going to be helping humanity in this very particular way. It's true for gender. It's true for, I've also been taught about it in terms of transgender people, third and fourth genders coming in to teach humanity about binaries. And, we have a lot of different forms of group karma that different groups engage in.
So I imagine it's very liberating just to sort of see some of the challenges with being associated with a particular group as part of like a kind of a higher mission, if you will, for that group. Does that change like how you then are addressing particular personal challenges, physical challenges within that context? Or is it just kind of gives you a little wider angle lens on why you might as a soul have chosen to come into that group?
Well, yeah, sometimes, a lot of times when people are sick or going through any kind of challenge, um, what they're being offered is answers for how, right? How did you get sick? Or how did you get into a car accident? Or how did you lose your job? Right. And they can kind of get answers for the causes of things in their life. But what people really want to know is the why. They want to know, why did this thing happen to me? Why did I get sick? Why did I lose my job? And it's only when we start to look at the bigger picture that we can begin to understand the purpose and meaning of what looked like traumas and tragedies in our lives. And that can be very healing for people. Obviously, it doesn't change the fact that going through those things is very hard. Um, and so we shouldn't try to misunderstand group karma as meaning that the types of suffering that people in groups experience are in any way acceptable, or that we should view them as, oh, they're okay because that soul chose that. No. But when we have this broader understanding of why we're going through the things we're going through, it can help us feel more empowered. It can help us feel like agents rather than victims. Because when you choose to be say, a campaigner for justice, and then you experience oppression, it's a little bit easier to accept that oppression or to make sense of it, because you understand that you are an agent of change.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you are being oppressed. And so when people come to this greater understanding of their group karma, they can realize that, oh, I am a soul who came here with a divine purpose to try to educate people about justice or about humanity or about binaries or about the earth, or about the feminine, the divine feminine. Like if you have that consciousness of, I came here to do this work, it just makes it so much easier to understand what we're going through.
Let's connect this back into the ancestral work as well, since they're obviously overlapping groups in ancestral. So being able to sort of work with like, what are those very specific things that have been passed down in your own ancestral lineage that maybe share a little bit about how that can be causative and also connected to the larger why of disease processes or personal challenges that people might have.
Okay. And, I just have to acknowledge that I learned some of this from my sister, who's a social worker. And social workers bring this different perspective to healing, right? Where they're looking at the family dynamic, the community. And sometimes as healers, we can get into our little bubbles where we're just only looking at things in a type of isolated way. And we're just looking at the client and what the client says about what they're going through. But actually, clients are the products of intergenerational processes. And what I have found, as a medium, like when I've been working with clients, sometimes a client comes to see me for a medical issue. And because I'm a medium, I will see their ancestors with them. And sometimes their ancestors will show up in the session and they'll say, this is an old problem, right? The reason this person has this problem is in part because of a certain emotional pattern that's been passed down, say, in the women's line for 3 generations. And so if the client can become aware of that and consciously choose to heal that, they can heal not only themselves, but their family. And so, I've had students in recent classes asking me about this, about intergenerational trauma and ancestral healing. And I often teach based on what people ask me to teach. And so I've been hearing this question and this interest in this issue. And I feel like we're at a point in history where it's important for us to begin to bring these things together, where it's not just, oh, I'm a spiritual being having a physical incarnation, but also I'm a spiritual being having a physical incarnation in a society that is structured in a particular way, and that has impacted my lineage, and it has impacted me in a particular way because of the way I look or practice my culture. And so it's really adding this new dimension, to our healing practice by looking at ancestral patterns. And so we can, some things are obvious, like we'll notice that, say alcoholism is passed down in certain families. That's a really obvious one. Well, my mother and my grandmother and my grandfather, right, and they all abused alcohol. And so you can see how if I abuse alcohol, it's not just about myself, there's something that I inherited there. But it doesn't just apply to these extreme examples like alcoholism. It applies to things like passive aggressive behavior, or a focus on victimhood, or anger management issues, or a tendency to favor silence over speaking out. There are lots of different things that can be passed down in families which are injurious to us.
I wanted to ask now to go into some of the terrain that involves your mediumship skills and psychic medium abilities. So in terms of calling upon and bringing into actual healing sessions our literal ancestors who are no longer in a body, and how that can be really catalytic to healing different diseases or physical challenges in the present.
Yeah, there's so many ways in which our ancestors can help us. And there are a lot of traditions where ancestors are a part of the healing practice. And some of the traditions I've been trained in include working with ancestors in particular ways. So, for example, in spiritualist traditions, we can work with an ancestor as a spirit doctor. And so many of us have ancestors who were healers or doctors or nurses or involved somehow in healing practices. And after they're gone, they still have those knowledge bases. And so, for example, I have a great grandmother who was an herbalist, and she was able to teach me herbalism from the other side. I have an uncle who was a doctor, and I can call on him to ask him medical advice, right? And we can work with these ancestors as spirit doctors, right, who can help us with our healing. That's one way to work with ancestors. But we can also work with ancestors when we're working with the ancestors of our clients to find out, like, what does this person need to know? So here's an example. I had a client once who came to me for a relationship reading. This is many years ago, back when I did that work. So just a psychic reading, right, about his relationship. And his father showed up in the reading, who was deceased, and was trying to get him to deal with some other things. And he was like, look, the reason, these are his issues. And he was explaining his relationship issues to me, but he was also connecting them to his own relationship issues and his own wife, and saying, he's this way because I was this way. And now I know better, now that I'm gone. And I don't want him to make the same mistakes I made. And so sometimes that's the way ancestors will come through, is they'll come through to say, please help this person with this pattern that I inadvertently passed to them, that I now realize is not a healthy pattern.
Makes total sense. Well, it was super helpful, your perspective. I also want to invite you to now go into a bit of an experiential for us to begin to make this real in our own lives.
Okay. I'd like to lead you on a short meditation. So if you could just kind of wiggle around, get all the wiggles out, and get comfortable. You might want to stretch and yawn. And when you're ready, you can close your eyes and begin to take some nice deep breaths. Inhaling slowly and deeply. Exhaling slowly and deeply. And imagine, if you will, that you're inhaling relaxing blue light. And the blue light moves down through your body, filling you with relaxation. Imagine also that with each exhale, you are letting go of gray smoke, all that does not serve you. Breathing slowly and deeply, deeply and slowly. And just notice how good it feels. Just to focus on your breath and to relax. Now, if you will, please focus your attention on the crown of your head and the top of your head, where you notice a wonderful tingling sensation. There's a circle of bright white light on the top of your head, tingling and vibrating. And the more you focus on it, the more intense it becomes. You feel a certain excitement. And the circle of white light begins to grow up, up, up into a cylinder of bright white light. And the cylinder is moving up, up, up in the air, 1 feet, 2 feet, 3 feet up. Cylinder of bright white light. And you notice above you a giant golden sun. And you recognize this golden sun, for this is your higher self, your source, where you come from and where you return. And you eagerly connect your cylinder of bright white light to this beautiful golden sun, plugging your little self into your higher self. You begin to charge up, bringing all of this divine source light down into the crown of your head. It feels like love, like peace, like power. And as you power up, this energy moves down into each chakra in your body, moving into your third eye. It spins and expands and moves down into your throat, where it spins and expands down into your heart. It spins and expands into your solar plexus, your sternum. It spins and expands into your navel. It spins and expands, and finally down into your perineum. It spins and expands, and the light moves down and around you, so that you are now encased in a beautiful rainbow, a bubble of light. And you just relax in that light, marinating in the power. And you feel yourself expanding, getting bigger and bolder and brighter. And the supply of divine source energy keeps coming down through the crown of your head, through your body and around, expanding your aura out. Expanded, empowered state, you are ready to go on a journey. And you begin to float up in your giant bubble, floating up up in the air. And as you float up, you look down and around and you see your room. You see your house, your apartment, the place that you live. You see your neighborhood. And you consider continue floating up, upward. You see your whole town, your state, your whole country floating up. And now the houses and the trees and everything are just dots because you are getting so high up. Feel so light. And you're floating up, 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 looking down on Mother Earth. And there are clouds all around you. And as you look around at the clouds, you notice a very large cloud. It's a huge cloud. And you just decide to float over to this huge cloud. And as you reach this huge cloud, you discover that it's filled with a park. There's greenery, grass, trees. And you begin to walk across this park through these small woods. And you begin to hear a drum in the distance. You follow the drum that you hear, that you feel beating with your heart. And you find that you are on a windy path through the woods. In the distance, you can see a fire. And you know that these are your people. And so you are eagerly approaching this fire, this ceremony, this celebration, this party. And when you arrive, you are greeted with so much joy and acceptance. Everyone is so happy to see you. These are your ancestors. Some of them are people you know, and some of them are people you don't know, and some of them are people you don't remember, and some of them look like people that you do remember, but they're all your people. You can hear them talking to you. You can feel them. Some of them come up and embrace you. You just begin to notice different things about this gathering. You notice that some people are dancing, and you begin to observe how they're dancing. There's a message in their dance. And as you watch them dance and dance with them, the message of the dance comes to you. It's a message about your family, about the generations before you. And now you begin to notice the food that's being eaten, the food that's being offered to you. There are plates of food, palm leaves, and different types of food and drink. And you begin to pay attention to the food that they're offering you and the drink. And as you touch the food, as you drink the drink, you become aware of what they are passing to you, what gifts, what wisdom. You also become aware of the poisons, of the foods and the drinks that don't taste so good, and why. Some of your ancestors are approaching you with gifts, putting them into your palm of your hand. And as you feel the gifts and look at the gifts, you become aware of what gifts were passed down to you through the generations. Finally, before you leave, there's one last message from a grandmother. She approaches you and she holds out a book and she says, "This is a way that you can heal." And you open the book and there are instructions on how to heal. How to heal some of what was passed down that no longer serves you. And you take this book and you put it in your heart, traveling back home with it, knowing that you are taking all that you have learned here back with you. You give thanks to your ancestors. You bow, you greet, and you leave. And you begin now to walk back down the windy road, through the woods, finally to the edge of the greenery. And you now find yourself on the edge of the cloud, and then you float off the cloud in your bubble, and you're floating back down to earth in your rainbow bubble, remembering everything you experienced, feeling your heart full. You float down, down, down through the clouds. You can see planet Earth, you can see your country, you can see your state floating down, down. You can see your town and your house, and you float back down into your room, into your body. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes, remembering everything. And we are back here now.
Well, thank you for that beautiful guidance. What do you recommend we do with what we've received?
Now, it's good if people can take a little bit of time to jot down any notes from what they remember, and know that some things will come to you throughout the day. You might even remember some things when you wake up in the morning after dreaming. You may have some dreams that are related to this meditation. And so you just want to keep jotting down anything that comes to mind. Don't question it. Just if you get these intuitive messages, just kind of jot them down and make note of them.
Great. Well, that's really helpful. And yeah, where do you want to build on that in terms of really using our intuition as a guide to outworking these deeper intergenerational healing trauma patterns?
Well, we all have access to our ancestors, and we all have access to our higher selves. In the meditation, we worked with our higher self to access these other realms. And we can all do that work. We can all work with our higher selves on a daily basis, and we can all invite our ancestors in. And so, one of the things that I teach is how people can find ways to make their ancestors more welcome. So, for example, if you have an altar that you work with, you can actually include pictures of your ancestors or objects related to your ancestors that are a way of you honoring them. And also, it's a way for you to signal to them that you welcome their advice. Now, we don't want our ancestors with us all the time, because they have work to do on the other side, and that wouldn't be fair to them. But they can visit us and they can help us in different ways, and we can sometimes invite them down to ask them questions, either in a meditation, a trance, an intuitive exercise, or in a dream.
Can you share a little bit more about just the ways that you work as in a kind of collaborative fashion with your guides and ancestors and sort of doing this deeper healing work?
Okay, so I work primarily as a medical intuitive, but I'm also a medium. So I also work as a medical medium, and I also say that I do work as a medical mystic, and that's where I work with high-level beings, and that's where I also work with plants and animals. And so in my practice, and in the way that I teach my students how to practice medical intuition, I teach us to really avail ourselves of all of the sources of wisdom that we possibly can. As the healer, I'm just a vehicle. I'm the hollow bone through which the energy flows. And so our job as healers or medical intuitives is to make ourselves a clean bone, to remove filters and contaminations from our own thinking, our own ego, so that we can receive guidance that we can be, and guidance and also energy that we can use to help people to heal, whether it's an individual or a community or even the whole planet. So there's different ways to do that. So I can work with some of these, can work with different guides. Some of them are angels, some of them are ancestors, some of them are, spirit doctors who may be ancestors, or they might not be ancestors. They might be like doctors and healers in history who are doing this type of work with current healers. For example, one of my spirit doctors is Valerian, who's from, I can't remember when, thousands of years ago. He lived in the cave somewhere. I think it was Greece. I can't remember. But so you could work with different spirit doctors from different traditions. They don't have to just be your ancestors. And then you can also work with other people's ancestors. So I mentioned earlier that, if I'm working with a client, their ancestors can come through and give some guidance. Or sometimes as a medium, I might just want to observe their ancestral lineage. I might be able to mediumistically tune into their ancestors to find out, are there some patterns that need to be addressed? So when we talk about ancestral healing, we're talking about working with trauma that's been passed down intergenerationally or that we are able to access through ancestors. And then we're also talking about ancestral healing as working with ancestors to heal. And so bringing ancestors into our healing practice, whether it's the ancestors of the healer or the ancestors of the client or the ancestors of the community, if you're working with a community, all of those ways of working with ancestors can be beneficial. So like one of the traditions I was trained in Jamaica, is a form of healing that involves working with ancestors to heal. Also in Trinidad, the method I was trained in there, Shangoism, you also work with orishas, but you also can work with ancestors to heal the community. And so people come together in large groups for ceremonies. And I've also run ceremonies in the United States where people come together and they're from a lot of different backgrounds, right? They're not all from the same ancestry. But they're able to come, and then their ancestors are invited to participate in the ceremony. And that can be just so healing for people to have that assistance, that feeling of love and belongingness, and like there are all of these people on the other side who are rooting for you. It's really a wonderful feeling when you get in tune with that, because we can feel very isolated on the earth plane. Feel like, oh, we're in this alone. We're on this lonely journey. We have to fight our own battles by ourselves. But in fact, our ancestors are often standing behind us, rooting for us and trying to help us in different ways. And so that's another sense in which ancestral healing can be incorporated into other forms of healing, is through these kind of ceremonies and working with groups of ancestors.
Well, Dr. Vest, you're just a fountain of fascinating insights into the process of ancestral healing and being able to work in interdimensional ways with guides, allies on the other side, with doctors. All the stuff you've been talking about is really quite fascinating. So I want to talk now about your upcoming course, which is really a way to go deeper into this and learn to apply some of these insights in a practical way to intergenerational healing. So Dr. Vest has agreed to teach a brand new program for Shift. It's called An Indigenous Approach to Intergenerational Healing. Diagnose the ancestral roots of your disease by working with Akashic records and other intuitive tools. You can find it at the URL intuitiveancestralmedicine.com, intuitiveancestralmedicine.com. It's a 7-week program. There are no prerequisites. It's really just if you're intuitively drawn to explore further. So, Dr. Vest, I'd love for you to share a little bit about some of your intentions for what people will come away with from this program, and then we'll go through the modules and give a preview of each.
Okay. So in this course, we're looking at medical intuition and also ancestral medicine. And this is a great course for a wide variety of people. It's good for people who just have an interest in looking at ancestral healing. It's a great course for people who are trying to get in touch with traditional medicine and how it influences their healing work. It's good for people who are healers. Maybe they've been trained in certain modalities, but they haven't really um, looked at ancestral medicine as it relates to their work as a healer. It's also a great course for people who are maybe medical professionals, but wanting to really expand their offerings and to understand a little bit more about the different causes of illness that go beyond just the physical causes of illness.
Module 1 is understand the origins of medical intuition and ancestral medicine to become a skilled, knowledgeable healer.
The term ancestral medicine refers to all of these traditions that have been around for centuries. Various indigenous traditions of medicine exist around the world, and sometimes we can lose track of some of those origins of the practices that we engage in now. And so medical intuition is an example of that. I'm a medical intuitive and I teach medical intuition, and it's actually the case that medical intuition, while not being called that, is practiced in a lot of indigenous traditions, but it's called something else. And when we start to kind of reclaim that and become educated about global indigenous practices of medical intuition, we can really have a much kind of richer understanding, and not only of what medical intuition is, but how it might be connected to our own ancestors, because we can sometimes feel like, oh, I'm learning a modality that's foreign to my people. And in fact, many traditions around the world practice medical intuition as a part of their ancestral medicine. And so learning that and getting clarity on that is really helpful.
Module 2, use your clair senses to scan the body for illness.
Okay, so we have a lot of different clairs that we can use in healing: clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience, claircognizance. And in the VEST protocol that I teach in my class, I teach you how to use each of these clairs to scan the body in a different way so that you can get a lot of information.
Module 3, tap into ancestral medicine, intuition, ancestors, and nature to understand complex causes of illness.
So, medical intuition can help us tap into physical and emotional causes, but when we add in ancestral medicine, we add in looking specifically at patterns, then we just have a greater understanding of all of the causes of illness.
Module 4, identify all possible causes of illness to help clients get to the root of their health struggles.
And so here we're talking about, all of the causes: physical, emotional, mental. Our thoughts, our thought forms can also contribute to illness. And then spiritual, our pre-life contracts, and then also our family intergenerational patterns. We have to look at all of them.
Module 5, work with the ancestors to identify emotional causes of illness.
So in this module, we're going to go over how to do an emotional scan, how to use clairsentience and an aura wrap to tune into all the emotional causes of an illness. And as part of that scanning, we can also tune into ancestral causes of current emotional causes of illness.
Module 6, embody ethics and integrity as a healer to ensure the best possible health outcomes for clients.
Being an ethical healer is just so important. That's why I wrote a whole book about it. And so I always think it's important for us to go over, best practices, risks of doing this work, and how to make sure that we never hurt our client, but always help them.
And finally, Module 7, uncover the spiritual causes of illness using energetic scans.
So in the spiritual causes, this is when we're looking at, pre-life choices that the soul made. And so we're going to be learning about how to go to the Akashic records in this module, how to go to this other realm and actually get information about karma, life purpose, pre-life, decisions, lessons that we want to learn, this kind of thing.
Great. Well, what a beautiful program and so much practical insight for folks who are wanting to harness the power of intuition to do this deeper healing work of intergenerational healing. So again, the whole program is laid out in detail at the URL intuitiveancestralmedicine.com, intuitiveancestralmedicine.com. In addition to the 7 90-minute live sessions with Dr. Vest, which are going to include time to ask your questions live and engage in interactive practices, you also get recordings for every session, both video and audio, as well as word-for-word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight. There are weekly exercises for home. There's a Facebook community to support you and deepen your experience, as well as small group time to connect with other participants. And on the page, you'll also see a number of extra bonuses that are designed to enhance your journey. So the first bonus is called 3 Medical Intuition Case Studies. That's a full ebook from Dr. Vest. The second bonus is particularly important. It's a digital guide to the Vest protocol, a detailed handbook. And Dr. Vest, I know that's your signature protocol. You want to share a little bit more about that digital guide that folks get if they sign up?
Sure. When I first started teaching medical intuition, I wasn't really sure how to teach it because I was taught primarily by spirit, and I had a lot of teachers who taught me a lot of other things, but not specifically medical intuition. And so when I asked my guides, how do I teach this? They said, you have to develop a protocol that explains everything that you do. And that's what I did. And it's a step-by-step protocol with, detailed steps that a person can take to develop their medical intuition. And so I created a handbook that goes into it in some detail, not only giving you all the steps, but explaining the steps. It's really a kind of a meaty intro to my best protocol.
That's a great extra bonus just by itself. And I also want to draw attention to one extra bonus that you will get if you sign up by midnight tonight. This is our way to encourage you to really take the time now while you have the most information to tune in and get a sense if this is the right next step for your journey. And if you do move forward today, you'll get a guided audio meditation and ebook from Dr. Keisha Ewers called Energetic Healing, Personal and Generational Trauma. She's taught some programs for Shift, and this is going to be a really powerful complement to what you're learning from Dr. Vest. So that's your special bonus if you sign up today.
I love her work.
Great. Yes. And so we've kept the investment for this whole program very accessible, particularly considering all the dimensions of the value you get. It's just 3 payments of $128. You save 10% when you pay in full with one payment of $349. The course is going to start February 13th and run Thursdays at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts, and the community as well. And great testimonials on the page. Dr. Vest is incredibly honorable, wise, and gifted teacher, incredible amount of knowledge to the practice of medical intuition, will exceed your expectations. Great testimonies from people who have studied with Dr. Vest before. So you're in really good hands, and you're going to learn a lot of very detailed and very advanced knowledge that allows you to apply your intuition to very important healing. And so you are going to be in for a treat. So again, it's all at intuitiveancestralmedicine.com, intuitiveancestralmedicine.com. So, Dr. Vest, we're at the end of our hour. As always, fascinating exploration of the frontiers of healing with you. So thank you. And anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering joining your full program on Indigenous approach to intergenerational healing?
Yeah, if you're feeling called to heal your family, your community, this is the course for you. Oftentimes we try to do that work on our own. We try to be the change agent in our family or our community, but it's so challenging when it's just us. But in this course, you're going to learn how to get assistance, learn techniques and get assistance from ancestors to help you to help others. So I hope you'll join me.
Great. Well, thank you for your wisdom and just the warm and engaging way that you teach this material. And thank you for being willing to continue to expand the paradigm of what's possible in terms of healing and our intuitive gifts and working in collaboration with beings on the other side. So really great stuff. So thank you, Dr. Vest, and thank you all for joining. And if you'd like to go further, again, all the details are at intuitiveancestralmedicine.com, and you'll get that special bonus from Dr. Keisha Ewers when you sign up by midnight tonight, called Energetic Healing, Personal and Generational Trauma. So thank you so much. Many blessings.